Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
I want you all to give us a great big Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, Fellowship by the Sea welcome to Frank J. of Los Angeles, California.
Thanks, Larry. Don't be astounded.
I am.
I'm Frank Jones. I'm an alcoholic. And I want to thank Jay. He invited me. Jay was a close friend. He's a good man, a good AA, and a good husband. And I spoke to him at least once a week. And along with everybody else, I'll miss him. I want to thank the committee for allowing me to share. On the flyer, I want you to know I am not from Sherwood Forest, California. I am not Robin Hood, man in tights, for Christ's sakes. There's guys out there that might be. I am not one of them. And on my name badge, it says Los Angeles. I ain't from there either. I'm from Sherman Oaks, California. So other than that, everything on here is correct. So, you know, not a problem. And I enjoyed Mitzi's talk last night, and I just want to say something so none of you think I'm involved in that. I am probably one of the 7 men in the world that she didn't move in with, okay? I'm just saying. So there you go. I just want to clear that up right now. It was your loss. That's the way it goes. But I look forward to this, and like Larry said, I couldn't be here last year. I was in the hospital, and in the last 14 months, I've been in the hospital 12 times. But I'm glad to be here. Everything's cool, and I'm looking forward to the speakers now, Paul tomorrow and Tina on Sunday. And I love coming down to the South and speaking. There's no place I'd rather speak than in the South. I hate the North, and California, you got to be shitting me, Jesus. I don't, yeah, I do, I judge. But I am thrilled to be here. I want you to know that I know I don't look like an alcoholic. I mean, look at me, come on. You folks look like alcoholics, okay? That's why I'm comfortable around you. I was born in Danville, Illinois, to a great family. Mom and Dad weren't alcoholic. They were married to each other 50 years, and Dad worked on the railroad, and Mom took care of me and my 2 brothers, and I did everything as a kid growing up that kids like doing. I played Little League Baseball, Pony League. I played sports in high school. I played football, basketball, and run track. I won 9 varsity letters. I had a scholarship to go to college and play basketball, and that's not why I'm an alcoholic. I came into Alcoholics Anonymous. I did that inventory. I read it to my sponsor, and I couldn't believe it. He pointed out defects of character and shortcomings. And I really didn't think I had any when I got here. But I found out growing up by that inventory that I grew up being a liar. I lied about everything because it's easier to lie than it is to tell the truth. When you tell the truth, it's just out there and you can't do nothing with it. If you're a liar, you can be anything you want to be. I've been an airline pilot. I've been a cross-country truck driver. I've been a gynecologist, whatever it takes in the bars. And I just lied to lie, and I cheated all the time because I'm lazy. Give me, lend me, can I have, let me borrow, do for me, help me out. My parents never taught me that. They provided a great home, and I found out that's how I was growing up. And First time I ever drank was at a party in Danville. It was a hot summer night. It was in the 100. And, you know, all the guys from the ball team were there, and we were with our girlfriends. And my girlfriend brought me over a big iced tea glass full of sloe gin with 7-Up in it. I didn't know what sloe gin was. I'd never heard of it. But it looked like strawberry Kool-Aid to me, and that was my drink of choice. And I took a little drink of it, and that's exactly what it tasted like. And I chugged that glass of sloe gin and 7-Up down, and nothing happened. I gave her the glass, asked her to get me another one. She brought another one, and I drank that down. Nothing happened. I didn't throw on an old wrinkled trench coat, throw a bottle of wine in a paper bag, and shoot to Skid Row. I didn't talk to my high school counselor and say, hey, I want to drag my butt down to Myrtle Beach someday. How do I become an alcoholic? And I wasn't drinking what I've heard at these podiums. I wasn't drinking for the effect or what alcohol was doing to me or for me or any of those things. I drank that night for only one reason. All my buddies at that party were drinking. All my buddies at that party were having a great time, necking with their girlfriends in the corner, dancing, laughing, and I can't do that. I'm self-centered, I'm self-obsessed, and I'm leaning against the wall, and I don't want to ask you to dance. I don't know how. I don't want to carry on a conversation with you because I don't think I'm smart enough. And I drank because all my buddies were drinking, and I thought if I drank, I could do what they're doing. That's why I drank, period. And I powered down almost a gallon of sloe gin in about 30 or 40 minutes with 7-Up. Nothing happened. 20 minutes after I finished that last glass, though, I found out where sloe gin got its name. I got drunk as hell, went into a blackout. I got drugged home that night. They dumped me off. And then next morning when I come to, I'm puking up everything I'd eaten and drank that night. I'm sicker than a dog. My head's pounding, my stomach, I'm puking. And I don't remember how I got home. I didn't know what a blackout was when I was in high school. I come into Alcoholics Anonymous. The old-timers told me, blackout, Frank, is for you when you consume alcohol. You'll go out and do whatever it is you're going to do that night, but the next morning, you'll have amnesia about all the parts of that night. That's an indication you got a problem drinking. Normal drinkers don't have those. I'm glad I heard that. I missed 3 days of school with a terrible hangover. I went back to school. The guys there and telling me what I did that night, they said I was dancing, I was laughing, I was funny. Some guy said something, I punched him in the mouth. And when those guys told me about that night, what I felt was a part of those guys, that fraternity and that brotherhood. The other thing I got out of that night to tonight, I don't drink 7-Up no more. 7-Up will make, if you're drinking it, stop. I'm just going to tell you right now. It ain't good for you. It'll make you forget things. You'll get sick. You'll throw up. If you have appointments, you ain't going to make it. Do not drink 7-Up. This is the only disease in the world that will take your life, your sanity, your actions will get you locked up, and your head will constantly try to convince you that alcohol doesn't have any part in it. This is the only disease in the world that will take your life, and your head will tell you you don't have it. I didn't turn into a blazing alcoholic and drink all the time and get the shakes in study hall. I drank when I could get it, usually on weekends, and when I drank, I got drunk. When I got drunk, I got in fights because I always wanted to be macho, and I thought that's what macho guys had to do. I stole all the time and gave stuff to people so they'd like me, and that's the way I was, and I started getting in trouble. About 2 weeks before graduation from high school, I had this scholarship to go play ball. I now have a committee in my head that talks to me, and my committee's saying, what if you go to that college and don't make the team? What if you go to that college and you don't even get grades good enough to stay on the team? What that did is fill me with fear. At that time, I didn't think it was fear. What my head said is, I'm tired of school. I've learned all I'm going to learn. I don't need this crap no more. So 2 weeks before graduation, I quit high school. That'll really make your parents happy, okay? I'm just letting you know. 2 weeks later, I'm drinking with the guys, and we're talking this macho crap that guys talk, and I want to impress them, so I told them, you know what? I'm going down and join the Marine Corps. If you're a wimp and a wussy and afraid of the dark, do not go in the Marine Corps. Just go on and join the Navy. Call it a day, that's it. I'm just saying. Well, we're in the Navy. It ain't my fault. Woman up. I found myself on a train going up to Chicago to get sworn in. All the guys in the car that I'm in is going in the military, and I'm full of fear, and I'm homesick, and the train ain't left Danville yet. And I can't tell anybody about how I'm feeling. I'm feeling like a wimp and a wussy, and I hate that. And I'm sitting next to a guy that's got a black leather jacket on. It's got zippers and chains on it. And this guy's got a ducktail haircut and long sideburns. He's going in the Marine Corps. And I want to hang with this dude in Chicago because it'll be safe. He's drinking out of a little brown bottle, and he said, hey, you want some of this? And I want to be macho. So I said, yeah. And I took that bottle, I chug-a-lug 2 or 3 big mouthfuls of it, and I don't know how you drank whiskey at the age of 17. I sprayed that crap all over the seats in front of me. I got whiskey coming out my nose, my eyes are watering. All the guys on that car are laughing and pointing at me, and I felt like a punk. I hate that feeling. I wiped off my face, I handed him the bottle, I said, that's pretty good. I just want to fit in, that's all. I just want to be a part of. I got sworn in Chicago. They flew me out to Marine Corps Recruit Depot, San Diego. I went through boot camp scared and homesick, and I couldn't tell anybody about that. I was ashamed of it, and I learned to put a facade out there and act like what I thought a man should act like, and I struggled. I got through boot camp, and they put me in the infantry at Camp Pendleton, and the Cuban crisis happened in '62 in October, and found myself on a ship in a convoy going down to the Panama Canal to go to the Caribbean. And I'm full of fear, and I can't tell those other Marines about the fear because we ain't supposed to be afraid, and I was. And I was ashamed of that. And we got down in the Caribbean, nothing happened, and we come back through the canal and went over to the Far East for 13 months. And that first night we unpacked our gear, and the guys come up and said, hey, Jones, we're going out in the Ville. You want to go with us? Hell, I ain't never been in the Ville. I'd have probably met Mitzi if I'd been. Who knows? And, you know, I felt like a man when they asked me, and I said, yeah, I'll go with you. And we went out in the Ville that night, and we bought a Typhoon 5th of sake that held about 2 gallons, and these guys are passing it around. They're chug-a-lugging it, and they're doing what macho guys do, and some of you guys have done it. They're all bear-hugging each other and head-locking and shit and doing knuckle push-ups in the gravel, and, you know, they're ooh-rahing, and I'm impressed, and that bottle got to me, and I chug-a-lugged 3 or 4 big mouthfuls of it, and I don't know how you drank sake at the age of 17. I sprayed that crap all over their shoes. I got sake coming out my nose, my eyes are watering, these Marines are laughing at me and pointing at me, and I felt like a punk. And I hate that. I don't want to be a punk, I want to be a man. And that bottle kept coming around, and I kept chug-a-lugging it, I kept throwing it up and chug-a-lugging it. And I learned something that night in Okinawa. If you're going to be an alcoholic, you cannot let looking bad bother you. You got to hang in, you know. And hell, look at us. We hung in. I think that's important. You know, and, you know, I kept drinking. I finally held enough sake down, and I don't know what alcohol did for you, but I'll tell you what it did for me every time I drank it. I held enough sake down. I looked at those 5 or 6 Marines, and I realized something. These guys are punks. Why am I hanging out with a bunch of sissies? You see, I don't need anybody when I'm drinking. You don't need to entertain me. I'll entertain you. I left those guys. I went out drinking on my own. I'm in a bar drinking, shooting pool with a Marine from another unit. He said something that offended me, and I hit him in the face with a pool cue. I seen it in the movie. It looked cool. But he's laying there bleeding, and they're calling the MPs, and I don't want to go to the brig. I don't want to go to the jail. I'm 17-year-old. I'm scared. I know right from wrong. My parents taught me. And I knew I shouldn't have done that. I knew immediately, and the guilt and the shame, and he's laying there bleeding, and I got to get the hell out of there. And I went out through the bar and out down the alleys, and I went in another bar, and I ordered a shot and drank it, and a beer and another shot, and something funny happened. After I had a couple of drinks, I didn't care if the MPs come in that bar or not. They're not going to take me alive. I'm fighting it out with them. That's the attitude I get when I'm drinking. And I started bragging to the Marine sitting next to me about hitting a guy with a pool cue. You see, when I'm drinking alcohol, I think everything I do is cute. I don't know about you, but I don't do anything I think is wrong. Everything I do when I'm out there drinking, my head has convinced me it's okay to do, or I wouldn't do it. Alcohol said, it's not, go, I'm on it. That's why I got a sponsor today. Because I get some ideas, and I'll run it by him, and he'll say, I don't think I'd do that. That ain't a good idea. I ain't going to do it. If I don't tell him about it or ask him about it, whatever I think is okay, I'm going to go do it. I'm going to tell you right now. And I got 32 years and 8 months. I'm going to go do it. And then I look down at the end of the bar, and there's a Nason sitting down there, and I'm a sucker for a pretty face. Women have soaked me my entire life of every dime I've ever had. It should be another 12-step program, okay? I'm just saying. And that young lady slid up next to me and she asked me to buy her a drink, and I want to look like a man, and so I bought the young lady a drink, and she started telling me this sad story about how her mom was sick and needed surgery, and it broke my heart. And then she needed some money for her mom's surgery. And so I gave the young lady some money. What would you do? And then we trudged the road of happy destiny to her hooch. And, you know, I like to stand here and tell you we had such a great time, she probably still remembers it to this day. It was over too quick for me to remember it. And I felt like a wimp and a wussy, and when she went to clean up, I just stole my money out of her headboard and set her house on fire. I mean, I went back to the base and passed out. At Reveille the next morning, I'm puking, I'm throwing up, I'm sicker than a dog, and I have no recollection of what happened in the Ville that night. I don't remember anything. And the guys in the head are telling me about the guy that was hit with a pool cue and the fire in the Ville, and the MPs are looking for that guy, and that guilt and that shame come back, and I don't know how I'm going to make that right. My father and mother didn't raise me to act that way. My dad was married to my mom 50 years. He never raised his voice to her. So I don't know where those actions came from. I was ashamed of that. But I found out a secret that morning in Okinawa. I opened up my locker, and there's a bottle in there with a big red dot on it, and that's called Akadama wine. I took that bottle of wine down, I unscrewed the cap, I chug-a-lugged it to put the fire out. I didn't puke it up. So I chug-a-lugged some more, and I went out to formation. By the time that formation was over and I walked back in that barracks, my headache's gone. My stomach settled down. I didn't have a hangover no more. I felt pretty good. Now, I don't know what that tells you, but what that tells me is if I drink in the morning, I don't have to be sick. I went right back to that locker and got that bottle of wine out, poured some in a canteen cup, and I walked around the barracks drinking it. 20 minutes later, I'm bragging about hitting a guy with a pool cue. I'm bragging about setting that woman's house on fire. Everything I do when I drink, I think it's cute, or I wouldn't do it. And I became a morning drinker and a daily drinker at the age of 17. All my money went on booze and women in the bars, and I became a bar fighter because I thought that's what macho guys did, and the Marine Corps really does frown on that. And I made a stripe, and they took it away from me. And then they restricted me to the base and then the barracks. And if you'd ever walked up to me over and said, "Hey, Frank, every time you drink, man, you get in trouble. You better watch your drinking," I can look you dead in the eye and give you reasons why alcohol ain't got nothing to do with it. Think about it. If that guy in the bar hadn't have said that to me, I would not have hit him in the head with a glass bottle. He needs to learn how to talk to people in public. So it really ain't my fault, it's his fault. And if the duty NCO hadn't have said, "Shut up and go hit the rack," I wouldn't have smacked him. I'm not stupid, but he needs to learn communication skills. I blamed everybody and everything for everything that ever happened to me till I got to Alcoholics Anonymous. And when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, the old timer snapped me up and said, "You want to see what the problem is? Go look in the mirror." The 12 steps in that big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, they're made for you to work, not the people around you. Your wife don't have to work this program. The kids don't. Your boss don't. The police don't. You, Frank, have to change and become different. And if you don't, you'll drink again. Because the guy that walked in here had to drink in order to live outside these rooms. And I'm glad I heard that. This is the only disease in the world that will take your life, your sanity, or get you locked up, and your head will continually tell you you don't need AA. You don't have to do what everybody else does. You don't need a sponsor. You don't have to get a commitment. You don't have to respect AA. Your head will try to convince you to get the hell out of here. You don't need this. It's the only disease in the world that will kill you, and your head will try to get you out of here. I ended up spending 337 days in the brig in Okinawa. I beat a cab driver's face in with a rock. I perceived that their meters were fixed and they were ripping us servicemen off. And they put me in the brig, and my dad flew to Okinawa from Illinois, met with the commanding general. He paid for that man's surgery. He paid for his retirement. He gave that cab company some money. My dad wasn't wealthy. He drove trains. And he just begged the commanding general, General Masters, not to throw me out of the Marine Corps. And it wasn't the way it is today in the military. It was 1963, and by the time paperwork went through to get me released from the brig and sent back to duty, I'd spent almost a year locked up behind trying to get money to drink on. They let me out of that brig. They sent me to Camp Lejeune in North Carolina, and on my way there, I went through Illinois on leave, and I met a girl out of high school. I married that young lady, took her down to Jacksonville with me, and she wants me to stay home and be a husband. I can't do that. I'm a bar drinker. I like the intelligent guys and the beautiful women in the bars, okay? And I don't know what you did to get out of the house, but I tell you what I did. I'd start a fight with her and make it look like it's her fault. And we're yelling and screaming at each other, and I don't know about you, but I just can't drink in a noisy place. Can't do it. And that'd give me the reason to get the hell out of there, and I'd go into bars in Jacksonville and drink in there, and some guy'd say something, I'd hit him, and they'd be calling the Jacksonville police, and I'd leave that bar. I'd go in another bar, and guys like me got to be validated, and guys like me, to get validated, got to have another woman. They think that's cool. And so I'd lock eyes with some honey in the bar, and we'd trudge off to her place and do what we got to do. And then I'm laying in her bed starting to sober up, and I'm starting to think. You should never drink and think. That's a bad deal. Nothing constructive will come of that. And what I'm feeling when I'm sobering up are the things you're going to feel when you're a liar and a cheat. And I can't go home and look at that woman now because I know it's me. So I stop and have a couple of shots and a beer. And what my head says when I'm drinking is, this is a guy thing. This ain't really no big deal. And I go home and I walk in the house and she says, where have you been? I automatically hate that question. Now I got to lie to her. I wouldn't be a liar if she hadn't asked that. So it's really, think about it, it's not my fault I'm lying. It is her fault for asking that damn question. And then we're in another cuss fight. And I got to get the hell out of there again. And then I come into Alcoholics Anonymous, and my sponsor and the old timers told me my wife's none of my business. It's not my job to tell my wife what to do, how to dress, how to clean the house, what to cook for dinner. My sponsor told me, if you don't like what your wife cooks for dinner, cook your own dinner and shut up about it. If you don't like how that house looks, you clean that house yourself and never say anything to her about it. I had to learn in Alcoholics Anonymous how to be a husband. I didn't have a clue. I thought I had to be the boss. Ain't that what macho guy? I'm the boss. Yeah, right, okay. I had to learn here I needed to respect her the way I wanted her to respect me. I had to treat her the way I wanted to be treated. I had to learn that in Alcoholics Anonymous, how to be a husband. Then we had a kid. I don't know how to treat kids. They make messes, they cry, they break things, they spill stuff, they crap in their diapers. I don't think humans should do that. And I shake her and I throw her in the crib and she's crying and the wife starts and she's crying. The only thing that takes away the feelings of being a bad father is a couple of drinks. I come into Alcoholics Anonymous, I found out kids are little people. That's what kids do when they grow up. They break things, they spill things, they move stuff around. My sponsor told me the only time you ever touch your children, Slim, is when you're going to put your arms around them and give them a hug. Lower your voice in the house. Clean your language up. Your wife and your kids and the women in AA, they don't need to hear the language you used out in the bars. He says, it don't make you macho to fire off the F word around women and stuff. He said, what that makes you is a mental midget trying to express yourself forcibly. I had to learn in Alcoholics Anonymous what a man was. I didn't have a clue. I had a conception of it, but I was totally wrong. I had to learn here from the old timers. And it wasn't the way it is today. When you came into AA back then, they didn't say, here, let me give you a hug. That shit did not occur, okay? That did not occur. They did not, I never heard the phrase, let us love you till you can love yourself. That is such a bunch of crap. If somebody tells you that, get away from them. They're trying to kill you. Nobody will ever love you as much as you do. Think about it. You weren't out there trying to help Mother Teresa. You weren't out there working for charities. Everything you did out there, if you're an alcoholic like me, was to make you feel better, to make you look good, to make you look smart. You wasn't out there doing nothing for anybody. So that's a bunch of crap. They told me that all the steps in the big book apply to me, not to them. And if I didn't change, I'd drink. I'm glad I heard all that. I ended up joining the Marine Corps again. I got out in September of '66. I went back in and I got orders to go to Vietnam. And I went to Vietnam. I was a sniper. I was up at Khe Sanh, 67, 68. I'm full of fear. I can't tell anybody about that. I'm supposed to be tough, and I found out a secret in Vietnam. 151 proof rum. You put that in your canteens and drink it, I guarantee you you're bulletproof and invisible. What happened was now is it allowed me to go out on those patrols with those other guys and show them what a tough guy I was. And I did all the things I thought I had to do to show everybody how tough I was. And I did a lot of bad things to a lot of people over there, and I'm not proud of that. That's just where alcohol takes me. I don't know the things that you do that alcohol tells you it's okay. I don't know the things that you can get away with that your head says it's okay to do when you're drinking. But that's what allowed me, and what I found out when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous is I can't change that. I can't undo those things. What I had to do is I had to learn that that's my past and I can't undo it. I can't change it, and I had to treat people differently. I had to talk to people differently. I had to change, and I'm glad that I heard that. I ended up getting blown up over there during the siege at Quezon, and I come back to the States and get out of the hospital, and I go home, and we're in Oceanside, and my wife and I are drinking. We'd had a son born to us, and he's crying, and my daughter wants my attention. That's a lot of pressure. I'm a veteran, for Christ's sakes. Her and I are having a cuss fight, and I finally looked at her, and I said, "Shut up or I'll kill you." And she didn't believe me. And I walked in the closet and got a gun out that I'd left home with her, and I walked back in that kitchen, and I said, "If you don't shut up, I'll kill you." When I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I didn't believe in God. I had done too many things to too many people, and if there's a God, I'm screwed, and I knew it. And I'm trying to get the safety off that gun, and it was rusted, and my daughter's standing between my legs, telling me, "Don't shoot her, Mommy," and I hit a pin at the base of the receiver. I pushed that pin in, it was a firing pin, and the gun went off. The bullet went through my hand and down between my legs where my daughter was standing. That bullet didn't hit that little girl, and I'm a blessed man for that. I could have accidentally shot and killed my daughter because my wife ain't doing what I'm telling her to do. Shortly after that, she divorced me. I couldn't believe it. I fired one shot, I shot myself. When I'm drinking alcohol, my head tells me I'm a good father. When I'm drinking alcohol, my head says I'm a good husband. I don't know what alcohol tells you when you're drinking it. I was a drill instructor in San Diego, and I fought in the bars down there, and I started to carry a gun, and I got crazier than hell. 2.5 years on the drill field, I had a keen alcoholic thought. I volunteered and went back to Vietnam for a second tour. I was in the infantry this time, and I just repeated my bad actions from the first time, and what alcohol did was save my sanity. I ended up getting shot up in an ambush. This time I come back to the States, and the Marine Corps wanted me to come back afternoon chow, but I got a drink now. You see, there's demons out there. You see, I know they're there. You may not know they're there, I do. And I got a drink. So when my enlistment was up, I had 11 years active duty. I got out of the Marine Corps. And I became a police officer in Southern California. That's right. How do you like me now? Freeze! That's right, I was carrying a gun. I can't tell my partner in the police car that I'm afraid of the dark and the alleys scare me, and there's things down there that I see I know he ain't seeing. So before I go to work, I drink. You see, drinking takes my fear away. I'm not afraid of anything or anybody when I drink alcohol. But on the other side of that coin, if you scare me now, I get violent. I was a violent police officer in the city I worked in. I'm not proud of that. That's just where alcohol allows me to go. I don't know where it allows you to go. Because of Alcoholics Anonymous, I go in the institutions out there to the prisons and stuff, and I get to speak. And I tell those guys that your life ain't over because you're wearing an orange jumpsuit. If you come into Alcoholics Anonymous and put the effort in here that you did on crime, you'll be able to build a good life. And I tell them, you can't come in here, though, and sit on your butt. You can't get this by osmosis. And I tell them that you have a chance. I wouldn't have that if I didn't have Alcoholics Anonymous. I got married again, we had a kid, and my wife got pregnant again, and I got to be validated still, so I started to have an affair with my partner. I have a female partner, okay? I'm just saying. And her and I are having an affair, and she found out I got my wife pregnant. She took offense to that. And she shot me, and yeah, it's just all fun and games, huh? Until you get shot. Look around the room. The women that are laughing, don't date them. Because I know down here in South Carolina, they all own guns. I'm just saying, just a warning. She shot me in the head, right down my part. And I thought rather than get gunned down in a police car some night, I'd resign. And I left the police department. I got a real estate license. If you think money, property, and prestige will fix alcoholism, If you're an alcoholic of my type, money doesn't fix it. Money doesn't take away the desperation, the rage, the guilt, the shame. Money doesn't take away those things. It allows you to do it in a better environment, that's all. And I made a ton of money in real estate. I paid cash for 2 Cadillacs. I put a house on a 1/4 acre, put a swimming pool in, a 3-hole putting green. My kids wore designer clothes. I wore custom suits that had diamond pinky rings and gold chains and shit. I had a Mr. T starter kit. That dude wasn't even on TV yet. And it didn't fix my alcoholism. And at the age of 36, I stood there and looked around one day, and everything I'd worked all my life to get was gone. My wife and kids had left, the house, the car, the jewelry, the clothes. Everything I owned was in a cardboard box in the back seat of a stolen car. And that's a hell of a note for a former police officer. I ended up homeless on the streets. I was there for about a year. A woman I worked real estate with seen me one day, and she picked me up. She took me to her house, cleaned me up, and took me to a doctor. And I can't tell you why she did that. That doctor gave me a physical. They let me go. I went back out on the streets. When they got the results, she found me again, took me into his office, and I sat down, and he said, Mr. Jones, he says, you're addicted to alcohol the way a heroin addict is to heroin, and if you don't stop drinking, you'll die before summer. You have cirrhosis of the liver, a hole in your throat from drinking and puking, and he says you got all the things you're going to have if you're living, eating, and drinking and doing the crap you're doing. And when that man told me I was going to die, what flooded over me was relief, because I'm tired. It's not easy ruining your life and everybody's life around you. It's a lot of work. I stood up, I shook that man's hand, I walked out of his office. The money they gave me to eat lunch on, I went to a liquor store and bought a 5th of whiskey and a case of beer. And I drank as hard and as fast as I could. To make a long story short, my parents in Indiana now found that I was dying on the streets in California, and they had me committed and strapped down in a hospital. If you've never been strapped down in 5-point restraints, if you ever are, you're not going to get out of them. So you might as well just lay there and enjoy it. That's it. And they pumped me full of vitamin B and magnesium to help with the withdrawals, and some of them I remember and some of them I don't. At the end of about 8 or 9 days, they took the straps off, threw my butt in a van, and took me to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I don't know why they did that. I'm not an alcoholic. I ain't never been arrested for drunk driving, never been arrested for drunk in public. I was a staff NCO in the Marine Corps. I was a police officer. I had made a ton of money. It's the only disease in the world that will take your life, and your head will tell you you don't need this. I walked into that meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, a bunch of losers in there like you, doing the same crap that you do here. Everybody's hugging everybody and shit and shaking hands. And I immediately judged you. You see, all the ladies were clean. They all looked good. The guys were clean. And you couldn't have lived the life I lived and looked as good as you look. You couldn't have done the things that I did, the 2 wives and 4 kids, and the crap I did in Vietnam, and even stealing from everything. And I looked at you, and you can't be alcoholic. And you guys looked at me and said, hey, Frank, get a cup of coffee, shut your mouth, and sit down. I thought, I'll rip your throat out. They said, there's too many of us. Why don't you just rip a seat and shut up? Ain't nobody said, bring the body and the mind will follow. Let us love you till you can love yourself. They said, shut up, have respect for AA, and listen. And I hated you. And I had to come back the next day. And then I looked at you and I realized I totally misjudged you. You hadn't made the money I had made. You didn't have the car, the jewelry, the clothes, the women, the rental properties. You're a bunch of losers. You guys just shook your head and said, hey, you ain't got any of that shit now. You're homeless. Get a cup of coffee, shut up, and sit down. Go to 90 meetings in 90 days. Go to AA if you want to take a drink. And that's what I heard over and over again. And if you're an alcoholic of my type, what happened to me might happen to you if you don't really plug into this thing called Alcoholics Anonymous. Get yourself a sponsor. Do not get somebody that you can talk to about your issues, okay? Your issues don't mean squat. There's nothing in this big book that says talk about your issues, okay? And these things that say, hey, go home and write about that, okay? This book don't say write about that. It don't say write about your relationship with your girlfriend or your wife or your boss. What this big book says to write is a fearless and thorough moral inventory. What this big book says to write is a list of people you had harmed and become willing to make amends to them. It don't say write that psychobabble crap the treatment centers are putting out. Get a sponsor that gets you involved in AA. Have you sit up front and listen. Have you start looking like an AA member and acting like one. Getting a commitment at the meetings. Help clean up, set up, wash the coffee pots, take the trash out. My sponsor said, don't come in here and just suck the life out of the meeting and leave. We got enough people that do that. What happened to me might happen to you if you don't do that. I walked out of that hospital. I stood out there in the sun and all the things I had done. All the killing and burning and the wives and crap and stealing came down and started sitting on my chest, and I thought I was having a heart attack. I didn't want to take a drink. I haven't had a desire to take a drink in over 32 years and 8 months. I had a desire to commit suicide. I wanted to take my own life because I had no hope. When I looked down that long, dark tunnel, there wasn't a light down there. I had no job, no family, no car, no clothes, no nothing. And I had no hope. And what happened to me might happen to you. I came back out to California, found my wife and kids in Oregon, talked them into moving with me, and we moved into a garage in a 6-acre field, not attached to a house, just a building. We slept on the floor. We ate out of a styrofoam chest. We run a hose from the neighbor so my kids could clean up before they went to school. And I didn't go to meetings. I don't need you people. I don't need a sponsor. I don't need a God. I don't need the 12 steps. And at 6 months, without a drink and no meetings, I'm driving a stolen car on the Hollywood freeway. I'm looking for work. I got to feed that family. And I have a 45. And a guy in front of me is driving slower than I think he should. And I'm honking at him to get out of my way, and I'm yelling at him, and he ain't getting out of the way. Here in South Carolina, it probably don't bother you. I rear-ended him, and I chased him off the freeway, and when he stopped, I stopped. I got out of the car. I took the gun. I walked up. I put it in the driver's window. I said, you drive that slow again, I'll kill you. I did not want a bourbon and water. I wanted to take a human being's life. Where do you go when you're so full of rage and desperation? You got no sponsor to talk you off that ledge. You have no higher power. You don't know anything about the 12 steps. You haven't made any friends in AA that you can talk to and be honest with. What happened to me might happen to you. 10 months without a drink. I ain't had a drink. I'm sober as I am right this minute. And I'm standing in a store called Alpha Beta buying me Pepsi and cigarettes. Do you think I'd buy my children milk for their cereal? My head tells me I'm a good father. My actions totally show something else. And I'm standing there in line and I look up and there's a sign that says 10 items or less, cash only. My head says count this lady's items. And I count them and she's got 13 items in a 10-item line. That evidently don't bother you. And I'm a thinker. I don't know about you, but I like to analyze stuff. I got to check it out. Is a dozen eggs 12 items, or is that just a dozen eggs? Is 4 apples in a bag, is that apples, or is that 4 items? And by the time I looked at her, she had 33 items sitting there. And I'm ready to launch. I'm angry. I am just, and I can't get rid of that rage. And she broke her checkbook out. And I said, you can't write a check, lady. It says cash, read the sign. It's in English. And she said, I'll be through in a minute, Sonny. I said, I ain't Sonny. I ain't never been Sonny. And I said, you ain't writing a check. And when I get angry, I got to touch you. And I took her eggs and milk and shit and threw it all over Alpha Beta. And then 4 sheriffs come to talk to me. I didn't want a pina colada right then. I wanted to rip her blue wig off. I hated that old broad. That's how I get when I don't drink and I don't go to meetings. And I don't have a sponsor to get me back off that ledge and that desperation. That won't happen to you. Don't worry about it. Just do it your way. It's okay. At 13 months without a drink, no meetings. I'm trying to interview in this office to get back into real estate. A guy walks by and said, hey, Frank, how you doing, man? I said, that's a personal question. Why are you prying into my private life? I said, I'll tell you how I'm doing. I don't want this office to hear this. And I grabbed that dummy by the throat. I jerked him. I started choking him, saying, how do you think I feel right now? I had a nervous breakdown. Don't worry about it. That won't happen to you. I didn't want a rum and coke. I didn't want a scotch. I wanted to rip his throat out. This is how God works in my life when I don't believe in God. 2 members of my home group were in that office that day, the only day they had ever been in there, then or since. And they pulled my fingers off that guy's throat. They laid a card down and says, you need to go see this guy. They took me back to the garage. They sent my wife and 2 daughters to his house to stay with his family. I had guns, a hand grenade, some det cord. I was waiting on the war. They took all that out of there and they sit with me, and I don't remember those days at all. And then they took me down to this guy's office after about a week, and I sat in his office and I cried. And I had taken sobriety as far as I could take it on my own. And what that man told me that day saved my life. He said, Frank, you haven't had a drink in 13 months. Drinking is not your problem right now. He said, you have a living problem, and you better find a living answer to it. And he says, you'll probably find it in meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. He said, there's a group of people that's walked that path before you got there. He said, fall in behind them and do the things they're doing. He didn't say come in and sit on your ass. He said, do the things they're doing. He said, get a higher power. And I said, I don't believe in God. He said, okay, you're slick. Whoever hangs that moon out at night and takes it down in the morning, why don't you say a prayer to them? I can understand that kind of talk. And I came into the meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I sit down and I shut up, and I wanted to be hip, slick, and cool, and the old-timer snapped me up. And he told me to go home and tell my wife and kids I loved them. And I said, wait, this is an honest program. That'd be a lie. And they said, well, you've lied to them 10 years. Go lie to them some more. And I went home and told them I loved them, and I didn't love them. I did it day after day and week after week. One day I went home and told them I loved them, and something funny happened. I loved them. They had changed. I don't even know what program they were going to. What I got out of that exercise is this. When I get told to do something by my sponsor or an old-timer in AA, I don't have to analyze it. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to have seen you do it. I don't have to go to one of my stupid friends and say, hey, what do you think? Wow, there's an answer for you. Be like getting it from John Graff, for Christ's sakes. All I got to do is get up off my butt and go do what I've been asked to do. And everything I have been told to do in AA has benefited me. What it's done is quiet my head and calm my stomach and allowed me to live outside these rooms. To this day, I have never been told to do anything by my sponsor that's hurt me. Have I thought he's crazy? I know he's crazy. But I have done everything that man's asked me to do. When you get sober, good things happen and bad things happen. When I was 9 years sober, my dad died. He and I had a relationship by then because of Alcoholics Anonymous. I learned how to be a son. I learned how he was my father and I'm his son. And when he died, I got to go back, and my sponsor and Johnny Harris said, why don't you go back and support your mom? Don't worry about yourself. She was married to him 50 years. And when they lowered him in the ground, I put my 9-year medallion in his pocket because he and I had a relationship. My brother, he was in Vietnam. He was a Marine and a police officer in Arizona. Got sober in my house. I loved my brother. He was my older brother. He got 17 years, 10 months sober. He got the effects of Agent Orange, and he died in 4 months. I love my brother. 4 days after that, my mom died. All I did is come to meetings. I get my strength, my hope, everything from you people. I ended a 31-year marriage in sobriety. I gave her everything. I took the file cabinet of bills. Nothing happened between us. We just grew apart. We sat down and talked. We decided on getting a divorce. I gave her everything. I took the file cabinet of bills. My sponsor said, well, you're noble, but you're stupid. And he was kidding, but I can afford to do the things better than she can, and I did that. And, you know, that's the way it goes. Bad things and good things happen. I was unemployed for 30 months when I was 14 years sober. We lost our home, car, credit cards, good credit, everything we'd worked for. My sponsor said, make looking for a job a job. You can't file bankruptcy. They want their money, not your money. You're going to pay the bills. You made the bills. And I looked for a job. I applied at Mervyn's, Toys R Us, Ralph's, Vaughn's. I applied for everything. And I got in the profession I'm in today, and I got caught up on those bills, and I live a good life today. I met a woman where I worked, and, we started to date, and she didn't know what AA was, and I took her down to San Diego with me to speak, and we started to get in a car and drive back up to Sherman Oaks, and she says, "Can I ask you something?" I said, "Well, sure." She said, "Did you really do those things? Or did they write that down and have you say it like a script?" I said, "Well, I did them in a general way." And she met a lot of people in the group. She met Larry Thomas and Clancy and Johnny and Cindy Coleman, and she knows a lot of people in the group. And Clancy walked her down the aisle because she had no men in her family that were alive. And she thinks AA is great. She loves you people. She said they're the most respectful people. I said, "You got to be shitting me." And she said they have more dignity. They are so nice. And I said, "No, they're not." And she says, "Yeah, they are." And I said, "No." I said, "They're whores, convicts, mental patients, homeless." I said, look at them." And she said, "Look at what they've done for you." And I hate it when I don't have an answer. But you see, look at what they've done for me. And I want to clear something else up. All you people that thinks Clancy's nice, okay? And it's just an act that he's got. When I was living in that garage with my wife and 2 daughters, and they took me down to his office, told him what was going on, a truck pulls up from the Midnight Mission. There's 3 beds, wool blankets and sheets and pillows, and there's 4 of us. And so I go to a payphone and I call him. "Hey, Clarence, you only sent 3 beds." He said, "That's right. They're for your wife and kids. You lost all the furniture, you ass. Sleep on the floor till you get a job and can buy another one." And then now, every once in a while, he calls the house and my wife will answer. My wife's 16 years younger than me. And she'll answer the phone and he'll say, "Is your dad there?" Yeah, he's exactly what you think he is. But I have a good life today, and you know what's great is in 1984, I got to go back in the Marine Corps Reserve. I went to the old man, and I said, "You know, if I stayed 9 more years, I'd get a retirement." And he said, "Submit your paperwork. They can just say yes or no." And I submitted my paperwork. I'd been out over 12 years, and they took me back. And I stayed until 2000, and I retired a sergeant major. And I went to Desert Storm in 1990 and was at lunch with Clance and them, and he said, "Hey, kid, don't worry about it. You'll be back in 90 days or less." And I thought, that's right, I'm a combat veteran. I'll end that thing. And he said, "No, you've never held any other job longer than 90 days, so you'll be back." And so, yeah, that's our sponsor. But I got to do that, and I got to retire, and that little girl I almost shot in Oceanside, my daughter, she's general counsel for a medical corporation, and she has 4 of my grandkids, and she loves her dad, and I talked to her so far yesterday and today, and it's not because I'm a good father, because I'm not. It's because I took Alcoholics Anonymous home with me. And her and I have a great relationship, and she got married last month, and I got to go to Indiana and walk her down the aisle. And that was really cool. She'd been divorced for about 5 years, and it was my honor to do that. My middle daughter's got a master's, and she teaches, and she's got 3 of my grandkids, twin granddaughters, Paige and Harper. They're almost 3. And Griffin, he's almost 5. And I get to watch those kids, me and the wife, because I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and they trust me. It's not because I'm a good dad. They'll bring them over, drop them off, and she'll say, "Don't forget, Dad, don't give Griff any chocolate or Pepsi." I said, "Don't worry about it, I got this." And they leave, and I get out the M&Ms and the Pepsi. And when they come back to get him, he don't want to leave. Not my fault, and wants to stay with Grandma and Graham Cracker, and I'll make amends to her later. That's what grandparents do, isn't it? Come on. And, you know, my youngest daughter, she graduated from college, and she was going to be a veterinarian, and me and her were talking, and she said, Dad, I don't want to go up to Davis 2 or 3 years to college more for it to be a vet. I said, what do you want to do, babe? She said, I want to be a police officer. I said, what? Are you kidding me? And then I heard my sponsor say, why don't you just support her? She's an adult. And I said, not a problem. I said, I'll do anything for you I can do for you to help you. And she got into the LAPD Academy, and in 32 weeks she graduated in the top 5 in her class. And she asked me if I'd wear my uniform to pin her badge on. And so I go there in my dress blues, and Chief Bratton's standing here, and he says, so you're here to pin a badge on your son? And I looked down at that little shit and said, no, I'm here to pin a badge on my daughter. And she kicked the shit out of all your guys. How about that? And he looked at me. And I'm proud of her. And she's been a police officer for 8 years, and I worry about her. She did her probationary period in a division called Rampart. And ain't nothing but scum there. And I went down to meet her partner. I wanted to see who she was working with. Big buff dude with big arms. And I said, hey, Slick, let me tell you something. If my daughter ever gets injured and I got to come to a hospital to visit her, you need to be injured too, even if you self-inflicted. I don't care. He looked at my daughter and said, is he serious? She said, yeah, that's my dad, man. And it's because of AA, not because I'm a good father. AA will cure any ail that you have. And I told you I had a son, and he couldn't get this. He came in here, like some people here tonight. He had all the answers. He had an attitude, wore his tank tops, shorts back down around, looked like his big brother's clothes. Had his little hat cocked sideways that just screams to everybody, look how precious I look. And he went to prison for 4 years. And he got out of prison, he come back to AA. And he wouldn't get a sponsor, and he wouldn't listen. He did it his way. He's all tatted up. He's huge from the old iron pit on the yard. And he went out, and he got 5 more years in prison. And he come back to AA. And he didn't change. And he wouldn't get a sponsor, and he wouldn't work the steps. He wouldn't respect AA. He hit on the women. He thought he was slick. He wouldn't drop his convict attitude. He wanted to be a tough guy and shit. Went back to prison 4 more years. He came and we talked, and he got into NA, and he got sober for 5 years and clean. Had a girlfriend. They broke up. He went back out. Now, there's a reason to go out, isn't it? Because you broke up with your girlfriend. in AA or NA. Like you can't get laid here. Are you kidding me? Hell, I'm going to be 70. I can. And he got stopped by LAPD TAC, and he had 2 handguns, sawed-off shotgun, crack, heroin, baggy scale, and a ski mask. And he's doing life in prison. Nobody held a gun to his head and said, go do this. He made a decision. Just like if you drink or use again, you will make a decision to do that. Nobody will force you to drink and use. That will be a conscious choice on you. He made that. If you want a relationship with your dad, Dave, I'm out here in AA. And he decided crime was more important than a relationship with me and being sober and living a decent life. So he made that decision. It ain't awe. That's his choice. He's 44-year-old. That's his choice. This disease will kill you, drive you insane, or get you put in prison because your head will say you don't need this. You can do it your way because you're cool. Not true. I love Alcoholics Anonymous. Not because of what I wear, what I drive, or the money in my pocket. It's because when I leave these rooms and go out there, my head's quiet, my stomach's calm, and I have a good life. And that's what makes it a good life, is this is quiet now. Am I perfect? No. I used to go to meetings when I was new, and I know there's new people here, and people at the podium would stand there, and I'd listen to them, and I'd think, Jesus. You know, I'd never seen anybody levitate till I came to AA. But there's people in AA that get time, and they're about 8 inches off the ground, walking hand in hand with God all over the room. And they're never late to work, and they don't yell at their kids, and they don't have impure thoughts, and they don't, you know, and I'm thinking, I can't get there. My head's too crazy. And my sponsor says, you don't have to be what this group wants you to be. You got to find out who you are, what you are, and start changing you. He said, you can't change a facade. You can't change something that's phony. You can't change an act. And I'm glad I heard that. I had to learn to be me. He said, in your case, you're just a butthole. You got a lot to change. And I'm not perfect. I still have lust, greed, sloth, laziness. I still have all the 7 deadly sins. I just don't let them overrule my life, so I act on them. I'm a human being. That's just the way it is. I'm human. I'm never going to rise above human, and I realize it. I make a lot of amends to a lot of people. You can't tell that I'm abrasive. You can't tell that I'm intense. But I am, and I'm glad I didn't see any cell phones come on with people texting, because I will break the screen on your phone, I guarantee it. And then I say it ain't their fault. If you're new and you're texting, you don't know any better, because it's the old-timers' fault for not explaining to you how to act in a meeting. So the old-timers need to get hot in AA and start getting things squared away again. I'm just saying, I don't judge. But if you're new or used and you're sitting in this room, or you know people that are, there's nothing I've said that's going to change. If you don't have a sponsor, you ain't going to run out and get one. If you don't have commitments at all the meetings you attend, you ain't going to go get commitments. If you don't call your sponsor, if you don't work those 12 steps, you're not going to start because I spoke. We will be here when you get back, though. Don't worry about it. The only thing I think you should remember out of the meetings is read to you out of this big book. And I think the most important line in this big book to me is the very first line of chapter 5, and that says it all. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Thanks. Oh, stop it. Big money.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.